The Blue Jackets managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory last night yet again. What happened? What went wrong? We'll talk about that on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster. Not with me is my co-host, Hayden Heilshorn. He will hopefully be back tomorrow. We are again struggling with scheduling here at Locked On Blue Jackets headquarters, but I want to thank everyone for making us your first listen of the day every day. If you want to be an everydayer, you can find us on podcasting apps of your choice. You can find us on YouTube and you can find us on SiriusXM. I also have to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. We have to talk about last night's game because yet again, the Blue Jackets clinging on to a win with just the absolute tippy tops of their fingernails. I think it was 3 minutes and they were up, and then the Hurricanes tied the game, and then the Hurricanes won the game. It was another really great example of what happens when the Blue Jackets have a lead going into the third period, which is they just defend. They were outshot 16-7 in the third period. Like, they were outshot in every period of that game. They were outshot 43-23 in total. Another excellent night by Elvis, by the way. 40 of 43 saves, and the Blue Jackets couldn't figure out how to get a win for Elvis. I want to see where he is in terms of his actual save percentage right now, because he has been having a really, really good run of games. He's currently rocking a 907 save percentage this season, which for Elvis is amazing. Love that. I just wish the team could hold on. And again, it's the same problem. Play a full 60 minutes, please, for the love of God. My usual complaints about the power play don't apply here. My usual complaints about Erik Gudbranson have returned. He was a -2 on the night. It was his turnover on the game-winning goal, the game-winning goal, excuse me, and he just had a rough night. They were outshot 22-1 when Erik Gudbranson was on the ice, and he was the second most played Blue Jacket, or excuse me, third most played Blue Jacket. Werenski had 23-36, Provorov had 22-20, Gudbranson had 22-13. David Jiricek, only 15-34. He played the least of any Blue Jacket defenseman, and I don't really know why. Like, yes, did he take a stupid penalty? Maybe, but he seems to have kind of fallen out of favor with Pascal Vincent, and that's not a great feeling. But it is what it is. The whole game was just an exercise in frustration, I think, and an exercise in being just really, really tense. For the first two periods, Blue Jackets score 13 seconds into that third period. I'm like, hey, maybe we've got something here. Maybe the Blue Jackets can hold on. Similarly to the game against the Devils that they won, it was a 2-1 win, and the Blue Jackets just held on to that win with everything they had. Again, similarly, the game against the Rangers, where they were 23 seconds or whatever it was, 27 seconds away from victory, and the Rangers tie it up and then win it in either overtime or the shootout. I can't remember. I assume overtime. And again, they didn't even get the overtime point here. Did they deserve to win this game? No, absolutely not. They got outshot almost double. They were not the better team in this game. Elvis deserved to win this game. That's about all I have got. you're playing against two of the for some reason Carolina Hurricanes goalies are struggling big time this season. I think they're like 5th and 12th in like most or least goals saved above expected. So like statistically they're like the 5th and 12th worst performing goalies in the league. Kochetkov was fine. He was good. He had a 913. He made 21 of 23 saves. So like he was good when they needed him to be. But if you're playing against a goalie that's struggling like the Hurricanes goalies have been struggling, like even with that win, Kochetkov still only has an 881 on the season. This was his first above 900 save percentage since November 11th, when he started against Tampa Bay and shut them out. Since then, it's been 875, 867. Playing against Edmonton, playing against Philly. Like, he has not been on a very good stretch recently, and the Blue Jackets could have taken advantage of that, and they didn't. What they did instead was make Elvis do all of the work. That is his third consecutive start where he has saved above 900. He had a 917, and then a 974 against New Jersey. He really, really deserved the win on that one. And in all three of those games, he's faced over 35 shots in each one. He faced 36 against Chicago, 38 against New Jersey, and then 43 against Carolina. That's too many shots for Elvis to be facing. He's been excellent in this little stretch. The Blue Jackets were this close to winning their first 3-game streak since March 2022, and they just couldn't figure it out. And it's just so endlessly frustrating to watch this team get so close. And like, we talk a lot on this podcast about growing pains, about teachable moments. If the Blue Jackets had not just lost 9 games in a row, I would probably be more forgiving of this loss, because this is one of those losses that happened. And, they didn't deserve to win this game necessarily, but they should have, if that makes sense. They were 2-0 up halfway through the third period, excuse me. Let me just see when the goals were scored. So with 10 minutes and a second into the third period, Jesperi Kotkaniemi scores to make it 2-1. At 16:51 of the third period, Brady Shea scores to make it 2-2. At 18:05, Svechnikov scores to make it 3-2. Blue Jackets can't score with the extra man, so they just don't get anything out of that game. That, again, should they have got anything out of that game? They didn't deserve to, but if this wasn't a Metro game, like, I can almost guarantee this would have gone to overtime, because if it's not in your division, if it's not in your conference, like, I think about the game against the Ducks where they were tied, and both teams, you could kind of see them visibly agree, okay, let's just both get a point out of this, which is a really frustrating thing to do. But Blue Jackets just didn't have it in them to hold on a little bit longer. Like I said, Elvis was excellent, made some truly 10-bell saves, and just couldn't hold on. 40 out of 43 shots, and I think it was like the 38th shot that beat him or something. And what can you do? You can't ask Elvis to do anything more than he's already doing right now, which, again, is not necessarily a problem, but is not what I expected to be saying after last season, where I'm like, the only person I'm not worried about right now is Elvis. However, there are some other guys that I think had good games. We're going to talk about them in a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, though, I have to tell you guys about collective.com, because they say if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. But as a freelancer, there's always the dreaded paperwork that comes with it. I know every week I sit down, I do my invoices, and I hate my life. With Collective, you can focus on your business of one while letting them focus on your paperwork. They are the #1 financial solution for freelancers, contractors, and self-employed entrepreneurs that lets you focus on your passion, not your paperwork. They can handle corporate formation and compliance, taxes, bookkeeping, accounting, even payroll. And the best part is it's at a fraction of the cost of a CPA. If your business makes over $80,000 a year, you will find the most value from going to Collective. So join the thousands of solopreneurs who have saved an average of $10,000 a year on taxes with their structure. Right now, Collective is offering 1 month free and no onboarding fee when you go to collective.com/LockedOnNHL and tell them LockedOnNHL sent you. That is $550 for free when you go to collective.com/LockedOnNHL. Tell them Locked On NHL sent you. Once again, collective.com/LockedOnNHL. Tell them we sent you. Okay, let's talk about a couple of other players. I know I've been very harsh on everyone but Elvis in this episode, but there are a couple of guys that I thought stood out as impressing me. And one of those guys is Johnny Gaudreau. 2-point night, goal and an assist, +2 on the night. Had 2 shots, played 11:56. For the past kind of maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 games, Johnny Gaudreau has looked like his old self. He is skating better. He is competing better. I can't figure out exactly what it is. I have to watch more. I want to watch more game tape of Johnny from the start of the season and Johnny now to see what kind of the difference is. But he just looks so much more engaged in the play. And I don't know whether that's he's got line mates that he can work with or whether he's just like something's finally clicked. And, but he looks like the Gaudreau of last year, which is really, really great to see. His goal was unassisted, which is always fun. He's now up to 11 points and in 22 games this season. Again, still way behind his usual pace, but he's shooting at 6%. That's fully half of his career shooting, and he'll figure it out. He will. I feel extremely sure of that. Will he ever get to that 115-point mark that he got with the Flames? Maybe not, but if we can get a point per season or more out of Johnny Gaudreau, that's a win. And it feels like he's starting to heat up, which is really, really great to see. Like I said, one of the best Blue Jackets on the ice last night. Adam Fantilli continues to impress. I thought he had an excellent game. Still struggling in the face-off dart, but I'd have to look and see who he was matched up with. But I suspect he was matched up against Jared Stahl, who is famously one of the better face-off guys in the league. Let me pull up the shift charts, and we'll see who he was matched against for the most part. He was playing against the top line. He's playing against the Aho, Jarvis, Teravainen line. So again, makes sense. Matching up against the top line, it'll come. I think that's something to work on. It's something that young face-off guys always struggle with. Sean Crowley, excellent night on the dot. Boone Jenner, excellent night on the dot. Danforth struggled, although from the looks of things, I think Danforth took 3 face-offs total in that game. And Corson just struggled a little bit as well. But again, young center, it happens. But quite a promising night from Adam Fantilli, I thought. It feels like it's coming together, and I know that people have been saying that for games and games and games, but this 3-game stretch, I think, has been very promising. And it's really, really great to see. I don't think they played their best game against Carolina. Had they won, would I be saying something different? Maybe. But they haven't looked their best. I think they can do better. They've got a really, really good test coming up against Boston. We're going to talk about Boston in a minute because that's who they're playing tonight. One of the best teams in the league right now, and I don't understand what's happening there. But just to kind of wrap up my thoughts on the Carolina game. Someone else I wanted to shout out as well. Kirill Marchenko, seems to have figured it out. Since that healthy scratch, he has been on a pretty good clip. I'm just going to pull up the game logs. So he missed a game, and then since that game, I believe he missed 2 games, excuse me. So he played against Montreal and then didn't play again until Tampa Bay. Since then, he's got 6 goals and 3 assists. He's got 9 points in, I think, 11 games since this healthy scratch. So, feels like Marchenko is back, which is great. And again, credit to Vincent for finally realizing that he needs to put that line of Gaudreau, Jenna, Marchenko back together, because they look great. They really do. I know breaking up that Fantilli line sucked, but I like the Fantilli line as it is. I would probably swap Voronkov out for someone because I feel like he would be so much more effective on the third line. He's been great. This is not me criticizing Voronkov. I think he's been great for this team. He's added a little bit of meanness to the lineup, which I don't necessarily think the team needed, but I'm not going to say, oh, take it away. He causes problems for the other team, which is always fun to watch. And but yeah, that Gaudreau, Jenna, Marchenko line is really, really clicking at the minute. And I hope that it stays together despite this loss. I know after a loss, there's a tendency to change things up, but don't do it. Keep the lineup as it is. Getting Texier back was great. He's another player that I am just constantly impressed is the word I was looking for, but I am also obsessed with Alexander Texier. It's very early here. I'm very sorry about how loopy I am. It's coming. It is. And I feel a little bit like the Einstein quote of what it might not be the Einstein quote. I might be making that up, but the definition of madness, where you do something over and over and over again and expect different results every time. I feel a little bit like that with this team, but I do genuinely think that they are figuring it out. It'll come. The biggest thing we were worried about this season, goaltending, isn't a worry right now. So I have room to worry about other things, like the fact that no one knows how to score goals anymore. So we'll figure it out. It'd be really great if they could figure it out against Boston, but that's going to be a pretty big test. And we'll talk about Boston in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, though, I've got to tell you guys about Sleeper, because we're well into the new NHL season right now. It's starting to look like some players are going to score 50 goals. It's starting to look like some teams are front runners for hoisting the Stanley Cup. You could be a big winner if you play Daily Fantasy Hockey on Sleeper. It is the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. They're our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. To win 100 times your money, you have to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. If you get those 8 player stats right, you are going to win 100 times whatever you put in. So if you put $5 in and you guess those 8 stats correctly, you are going to win $500 with Sleeper. So start paying attention, nail your picks so you can start winning big. All you've got to do is pick whether guys like Ovechkin, Crosby, McDavid will record more or less than their Sleeper projection for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in any given game. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. You're going to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Okay, let's talk Boston, because that's what a game to go into. Boston is somehow, again, despite losing Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci, they continue to be one of the top teams in the league in basically every metric. They're on a 2-game losing streak right now. They're 5-3-2 in their last 10 games. But they are standing behind Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman, who are rocking a .918 and a .927 save percentage, respectively. And it feels very much like they can't keep getting away with this. going from Tuukka Rask, who was one of the best goalies of the last kind of 10 years, to Linus Ullmark, who has been just lights out good for this team. Okay, this is where I have to kind of own up to something, is that I criticized him winning the Vezina last season because I looked at the team and it was like, well, yeah, he didn't have a very hard go of it. I personally would have given the Vezina to Ilya Sorokin, who had similar stats but played on a much worse team. That being said, looking at this team right now, the goaltending is the reason that they are thriving. Ullmark is 7-2-1, Swayman 7-1-2. We've already talked about their save percentage. They are 4th in the league in goals against per game and only 12th in goals for per game. So, like, if they allow an average of one more goal a game, they lose. They lose most of their games, I think. So goaltending is really keeping them in it. Obviously, David Pastrnak is always dangerous. He's currently sitting on 31 points in 20 games, 13 goals, 18 assists. Continuing on from last year, again, one of the best wingers in the league, has 12 points more than his next highest scoring player, which is Charlie Coyle, who I believe is centering the line between him and Marchand, who also sitting on 19 points in 20 games. By contrast, the Blue Jackets' leading scorer is Boone Jenner with 14 points, 11 goals, 3 assists. So Pastrnak just on another level. He's got 7 points in his last 5 games, 2 goals, 5 assists. Charlie Coyle has 4 goals in his last 5 games. So, like, that line is the one to watch. Marchand, always a pain in the butt to play against. This team is going to be tough to play against. I do not relish the thought of this game tonight. I am a little bit not worried. No, I am. I'm worried. I'm worried. I'm anxious. I'm nervous. All of the words that mean something slightly different. Do I think the Blue Jackets could win this game? Yeah, I think they could. If they play like they did last night, probably not, because the Blue Jackets are going to have to outscore Boston and outgoalie them. And that's a tough ask, especially not necessarily because Boston is so good at goal scoring, but because the Blue Jackets are struggling at goal scoring right now. They're 24th in the league. They're scoring 2.82 goals per game versus Boston scoring 3.4 goals per game. The penalty kill is the big bright spot for the Blue Jackets. They have snuck ahead of Boston in the rankings. They are second only to LA right now, who's sitting on, again, about 89 point something percent. Blue Jackets at 88.9%. They killed off both penalties against Carolina last night, which is important. They didn't get a power play, which I think it's the first time this season they haven't had a power play in a game. But I'm not mad about that because the power play continues to be bad. So I'm not upset that they didn't get a penalty, because what would have happened is they wouldn't have scored on it, and I would have spent a good portion of this episode being mad about how bad the power play is instead of talking about the good things that happened in the game. The penalty kill is gonna have to be good tonight. Boston has the 9th best power play in the league, and David Pastrnak is a menace. He's got 4 power play goals. 4 of his 13 goals have come on the power play. James Van Riemsdyk, 3 of his 5 goals have come on the power play. It'll be interesting to see what happens here. Charlie McAvoy on the back end, again, one of the better defensemen in the league. 13 points in 16 games. Obviously, just missed some time with a suspension. I think 4 games. But he's back and is going to be, again, a problem for this team. So what do the Blue Jackets have to do to beat Boston? Well, first of all, they have to figure out how to shut down that top line of David Pastrnak. Honestly, I play the Jenner line against the Pastrnak line. That frees the Fantilli line up to go and cause mayhem, because their second line, I believe, is Pavel Zacha with Van Riemsdyk and Poitras, who's a rookie that's doing extremely well. He's got 9 points in 20 games, which is always fun to see. So we will see what happens. But that's what I would do in terms of the top six. Play Jenna, the more experienced center, against the harder matchup, and let Fantilli kind of feast on a slightly weaker second line. Because I feel like last night they kind of flipped that. Fantilli got the tough assignment. The Jenna line got the slightly easier assignment, and they succeeded with it. Marchenko goal, Gaudreau goal. It's time for Fantilli, I think, to get maybe the weaker assignment, especially against a team like Boston. But I'm not. I was going to say I'm not worried again, but I am. I keep saying that I'm not worried, and it's a lie. This is going to be a tough game. It's going to be a really, really tough game. Boston, in terms of the standings, I think is still either first or second in the league. Yeah, tied for first in points behind New York. Just because New York has a game in hand and I believe has more regulation or overtime wins. Yes. So it's going to be a very tough ask. Obviously, they've got a little bit of a losing streak coming in, so that's the stress. There is Boston. They just had 7 goals scored on them by New York, so they're going to be mad. In a similar way to the Blue Jackets came into a Carolina Hurricanes team that just got outscored. I think they got beaten up pretty badly by the Oilers. I think it was 8-2 or 8-3 or something like that. So like they were mad. They wanted to win. It was a tough team to go into. Again, Boston is going to be the same. They've just had 7 goals put past them, and they're on a 2-game losing streak. So I'm afraid. In terms of predictions, I'm going to go with, just because I've been doing it all season long, I'm going to go with the Blue Jackets winning this game. I'm going to say 3-1 win. And I'm going to say that Boone Jenner gets the opening goal. I just have a feeling. It's been a minute since he scored, but a minute by which I mean like 2 games. And this feels like a kind of game that he will really, really thrive in. So I'm going Boone Jenner, and I'm going a 3-1 victory for the Blue Jackets. And that's kind of all I've got for today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. If you want to become one of our everydayers, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, Audible, the audiobook website. You can find us on there. We're on Amazon Prime. We're on YouTube, which is not a podcast app, but is where you can see my wonderful green Dragons jersey for a team that no one who listens to this podcast has heard of, I assume. But I like it, so it's there. You can also find us on SiriusXM, the radio app, if you would like to do such a thing. That is possible for you to do. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find my co-host at HaydenH971. He'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll break down tonight's game against Boston. And hopefully, please just don't do the last-minute collapse thing again. Please. That's all I ask about from this game. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets on Twitter. I forgot what I was saying there. It's fine. Again, it's very early here. You can find, if you want to email us, you can do so at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Comments, questions, criticisms. We're going to try and do like mailbag episodes a little bit more often. So if you have questions that you want us to answer, send them into the email, and we'll keep them for probably a Friday show. We'll do a Friday mailbag, I think. Why not? And thank you once again for listening. Thank you for making us your first listen. Locked On Blue Jackets is your team every day. So until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.